Republican DPOU, I, Deputy Chair Redwood, would like to welcome all of you to our Minnesota Gubernatorial Governor Forum. However, before we start the forum, I feel it's important to have a moment of silence and reflection in honor of Charlie Kirk and his young man. Thank you. Tonight I want to thank Republican gubernatorial candidates Scott Jensen, Brad Kohler, Philip Parrish, and Kendall Qualls for attending tonight's forum. Moderating tonight's forum will be State Senator Gary Dames from Senate District 15. Please give a round of applause to thank our governor candidates and Senator Dames for being here. At this time, we will stand if you're able, and we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you could remain standing, we'll have prayer by Anita Rowe.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, Lord, for all the people gathered here and for providing our deepest needs on this beautiful day. We ask for your blessing on the gubernatorial candidates, the constituents, and for all the legislators in Minnesota. We pray for the candidates to speak with clarity, honesty, and wisdom so that the constituents, with your leading, can best determine who to choose for endorsement. Father, help us to rest in your power, trusting your Holy Spirit to work through us daily. You are awesome, merciful, and good. I ask for your protection for all our leaders in America. Thank you for giving us your Spirit to confront us, to clarify Scripture, to condemn evil, and to confirm what is good, right, and true. And Lord, we lift up Charlie Kirk's family and our nation as we grieve the loss of this brave Christian visionary who was taken from us this week. Let his work continue on. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Amen. And Charlie Kirk said it best, quote, all death can do to the believer is deliver him to Jesus, unquote. You may be seated.
Well, thank you folks for being here this evening. We truly do appreciate it. We got a couple of housekeeping things. First of all, get my notes out here. Dig a little deeper. We request that there's no video, no audio, and that you put your phones away. There will be a couple of folks doing some videoing, and that will be the candidates' campaign committees. And then the Redwood County, thank you, Redwood County DPOU. So the first thing we're going to do is have opening comments, and we've met with all of the candidates, and they are aware of how the evening will be going. So the opening remarks, each candidate will have 3 minutes, and we'll start with candidate Parrish, and then we'll go to Kohler, then Jensen, and then we will go to Kendall Qualls. So with that said, we will start with Mr. Parrish.
So we have the mic turned up, but I know it's a little shallow in that back corner and that side. Okay, so if you want, if you're over there and you can't really hear him, move over here and it's a lot better.
Test.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, check 1, 2, also. All right, I used up my 3 minutes. Good evening. Wow, what an amazing crowd and energy. I was doing some research, doing a little voice in my head over my car speaker. I could listen to some research that was being done for me and sent to me vocally. And you've got a lot going on here in Moran, so I'm very grateful. But some of you are from quite a ways away. A couple of friends actually, 2-3 hours away. So thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And there's so much to talk about. 3 minutes. The best thing I can do is turn you on to the website, parishformn.com. PARRISH, the number 4, MN.com. I really want you to take some time to get into that, dig into it, especially in the news tab. Type in almost any topic in the search bar, and it'll come to the top. The top 3 articles will come up, and dig into it. There's substance there. I have a handout today when we get a chance to talk more afterwards that I want you to take away with you and look at my 100-day plan. Look at how we're going to build a cabinet. Look at how we're going to walk into office ready to win and ready to lead. I am Philip Charles Parrish, candidate for governor of Minnesota 2026. I was born and raised here. I was born in Blue Earth. I graduated high school in West Concord, Minnesota, became a teacher, joined the military thinking I was going to be a reservist, spent 11 years overseas on active duty. I'm a counterterrorism specialist, foreign policy specialist, and I am one of the original whistleblowers of the daycare fraud in 2017 and 2018. I am very grateful to have an opportunity to visit with all of you. I look forward to visiting with you more, and hopefully you get a chance to know more about who I am and what I have to offer. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for such a great team this year. In this coming 2026 election, we have a lot of exciting things coming forward. And we've already talked about Charlie Kirk, but I don't know about you, but me personally, in all of the hours and hours of listening and watching and reading, I'm heartbroken. But I know deep down, because of all that I've interacted with Charlie, not personally, I don't know him personally, but I know for a fact he would want us to work even harder and keep the message going. Thank you.
Our farmers are overregulated. Our taxes are too high. We have poor leadership. Businesses are not respected. The new F-bomb is fraud here in Minnesota, and that seems to be the biggest topic every other week that keeps coming out. There's very little accountability and transparency in our government. What I plan to do is bring trust back to our capital. My name is Brad Kohler. I'm a former UFC champion, MMA world champion, UFC fighter, and author, inventor, businessman. When COVID hit 5 years ago, it devastated me. It shut down my businesses, and that's when I started talking about running for governor. I've been at this 5 years. I reached out to certain people like Jim Jordan, who I've known for 50 years. We were state champs together in Ohio. He coached Ohio State when I was training for the U.S. team. So I reached out to him for some mentorship, like a lot of other people. And I learned to get around the political system. I started with state senate, run for Congress, and then county commissioner. So I kind of learned through the whole process on my own dime. I didn't want to get a donation and fail on the taxpayer dime. And that's what I plan on doing in office. I have learned how to win and how to make things right. I'm the guy who figures things out. And when I talk more and more about revenue streams, we're going to be facing a $10 billion deficit by 2027. And we need more than the taxpayers to bail us out. I am creating many revenue streams that are going to bring us back into the black and put money back in your pockets, and so you don't just feel lint anymore. Thank you.
Some other things. Could I please have that extra minute that Brad Kohler did use? Just kidding.
I should have.
Good evening, folks. Thanks for coming. Scott Jensen here, and this is my home territory. I swear I could recognize the fields. We'd go by the soybeans and the corn. I grew up in Sleepy Eye, and it's really a privilege to see many of you here. Thank you. Over the last 5 years, without question, we have all endured a lot. We've endured things we never thought we would. We have felt the heartbreak of watching neighbors' lives devastated. We have seen kids locked out of schools. We have seen horrific, lonely deaths in the nursing home, and we have seen businesses shut down. And at some level, I think we all grasp the fact that our leadership just wasn't doing it. But this election cannot be about complaining about our leadership. It has to be about what are we going to fight for. And we are going to fight for fairness. We are going to fight for privacy and fairness for girls and women in locker rooms and on the field of competition. We're going to fight for fairness for parents. Parental rights have been undercut over and over again. At the end of the day, we need to fight also for the Founding Fathers' wisdom. Because if you look at the Constitution and you particularly pay attention to the preamble, I always think of the 5 L's. That's to me what the Founding Fathers talked about. First, limited government, and there was a reason for that. Lower cost of living. If you think back to the crisis with the start of our country and the Adams Brothers and the Boston Tea Party, we needed to lower the cost of living. We also need to have less taxes. We're getting taxed so many ways, we don't even realize it. It isn't just income taxes and sales taxes. It's in our car tax, it's on our fishing license, it's on everything we do. And we are out of bounds when we compare ourselves to other states. And at the end of the day, we need to absolutely fight for free speech. Charlie Kirk died because he fought for free speech and said what he thought he should be able to say. When I sued Keith Ellison, after I was finally exonerated by the Board of Medical Practice, I wasn't just fighting for my free speech. I was fighting for yours. I'm nothing special. I'm a family doctor in the trenches, but they were shutting me down, and they don't get to do that. Every one of us has to fight for free speech. They might have eliminated Charlie Kirk's voice yesterday, but in his wake, 1 million voices will stand forward. This 2026 election is so important. What really matters is not me or any of us up here. It matters that you step forward, that you engage, that you fight for freedom. Thank you so much for being here.
You don't have to scoot that far away, Scott. It's okay. Well, good evening, everyone. You know what? When you take a look at Minnesota, if it was a company traded on the New York Stock Exchange, most people would have sold their stock by now. A once proud brand in near fatal decline because of the management of 10 Walls and Democrats for the last 20 years have put it on the brink. We're on the brink. We have a chance to save it. I want to tell you what we need is an intervention with a leader from outside of politics, from the business world, with military leadership experience that can interject, help turn this around, all of us together. We can do that. Now, take that applause out of my time. Last year, the majority of Americans elected Donald J. Trump president, not just through the Electoral College, but also popular vote, because they wanted a better economy than the previous administration was giving them. They wanted leadership, good governance, and they wanted for us to get our swagger back, if you will, as Americans, be proud about that. And we should be ashamed about it. That's exactly what Charlie Kirk was talking about. And it's his entire short life. My friends, there's nothing better than celebrating with a team that's turned around a declining business. Because I know, because I've done it. Big business, in my experience, as well as small startups. That's what we can do. And I'm going to tell you, many of you know my career, you know my life, and you know my background, if you will. I lived in dire poverty, from the inner city of Harlem to Trailer Park in Oklahoma. I didn't wallow around in pity. I took responsibility. I didn't blame anyone else for where I started. I got an education. I worked through school. I served our country. I got into the private sector so I can have a better life, not just for me, but later for my family. I want the same thing for all Minnesotans. I don't want to be in the generation that lost Minnesota. I want you to help me be in the generation that rescues Minnesota and save it for the next generation and the generation after that. We're on the cusp, and we need to band together as a team with a leader that can help us do that and win statewide for the first time in 20 years. And when we do that, we're going to remind people what it means. We are one nation, one flag, one constitution. We're not a tribe from many different countries. We're one nation. The Democrats have flags. They have the pride flag, they have the DI flag, they have the Palestinian flag, and they burn the American flag. Those days are over. Okay? We need to find out what it means again, to be proud of the Americans. And we fly one flag for our country and the real one for our state. Thank you.
Well, thank you, candidates. We appreciate the opening comments. We'll start with the questions, and the first question will be, Republicans haven't won a statewide race in several years. How do you plan to break that cycle, and what will you do to help the entire ticket have success next November? The first candidate to answer this will be Brad Kohler, and then Scott Jensen, Kendall Qualls, and then Philip Parrish. Brad?
Thank you. So I am an inventor, so I'm the guy that thinks things through. And when I got into this, I wanted to find out how to win, because we haven't won. I looked at Scott's race in 22, I looked at Trump's race in 24, and I looked at how did we lose and how over the numbers. I started reaching out to the minority communities and really building those relationships. And it wasn't that they didn't like Republicans, they just didn't know any. So, being with the Vietnamese community for quite a while now involved heavily with the Hmong community, that's over 100,000. The Black community down in Minneapolis, I'm in their churches every Sunday. You can look at my Facebook page and see that I'm in their churches with them. They are on Facebook endorsing me. The Hispanic community as well is behind my campaign. So the numbers are going to show the difference here, bringing 600,000 new Republicans to the party because I've reached out to them, getting to know who I was and building that relationship. Now, whether they vote for me or not, it's about showing them the Republican way. And I am a team player. We have a lot of great guys up here, okay? And one person told me one time that if you put us all together, we have one great governor. So when I win, I plan on bringing these guys with me, okay? So. Team player, okay? So that's what I did. I wanted to go out there and reach out to the people that weren't reached out to before. Kick over every stone kind of method. That's my, first in, last out athletic background is work harder and longer than anyone else. Thank you.
Donald Trump showed us a path. And that path was, we need to revive the relevance of being Republican. He absolutely showed us that. He focused on a sizzling economy. He focused on elevating the rights of parents, elevating health freedom. He looked at what was happening to America and said, there are 80-20 issues growing on trees like apples, and we've got to grab them. A secure southern border makes sense. An international standing more typical of America makes sense. President Trump focused on responsible government, responsible spending, and he went right at America's eyeballs, and they paid attention. That's what we need to do. How are we going to win? We need to do 3 specific things. We need to embrace and understand the 17 and 18-year-olds who are new voters. We need to know what they're thinking and how they communicate. And they're not buying the Star Tribune. They're communicating on social media, and we need to be there. And we need to know what they're thinking. 17 and 18-year-olds think differently than 70 and 80-year-olds. We also need to go to the external ring suburbs and do better than we've been doing with moms, women, mama bears. And we need to spend time in Minneapolis and St. Paul. We don't need to win those cities, but we need to do better. That's what we need to do. In greater Minnesota, we need to absolutely run the numbers. And we need MNGOP to focus on one thing more than anything else. They have got to build a ground game that will work in every legislative district and in all the statewide races. MNGOP has to be the cohesive force that says, this is about winning, this isn't about separating, this isn't about diminishing anyone's voices. We are going to build a bigger tent, and that's why we're here tonight, folks. Thank you.
You know, one of the reasons I'm actually in politics and never have been in public office is to help us win in the Republican Party. We have all the things that work for most Americans, but we do a lousy job of marketing and selling it. People prosper in the states where we govern, in the counties where we govern, but we need to make sure we connect the dots on why they are prospering. So to answer your question, how are we going to win statewide? Obviously, we got to get more votes in Metro. We got to excite the base. And what has been happening in our campaign, we're getting people that are signing up to be a part of this campaign that never have been involved in politics. I have people writing a check. This is the first one I'm donating to any candidate ever. I've never had a campaign sign in my yard. We can energize our base, but how do we get people that typically don't vote Republican? You know, that's been something that's been missing for a long time. My wife and I, our foundation, we've been in these communities for the last 5 years. But the biggest issue, I think, from the opportunity that we have, is that the Democrats are going so far left, they're leaving some of their own people behind. So this is why I get emails from Democrats. Please, Kendall, run, win, and help us get the crime out of our cities. They're asking me, never been in office, they see the leadership component, but they also have asked the same question of their mayor and their city council, and they've turned a deaf ear to them. I speak about this all the time. We're going to get that economic prosperity, we're going to get crime under control in less than 2 years, we're getting our Minneapolis back. And we're going to fix our public schools. Then lastly, how we're going to win statewide, I'm going to ask the Trump administration to bring down attorneys like they did in the general election and put them in precincts where we have suspected voter fraud and make sure that we have a right and fair and legal election.
I wear this purple a lot, and there's a reason for it. Our campaign is built off of not left versus right, not all the blue versus red, all the gang warfare tactics of the party establishment. It's about right versus wrong. And as we've been traveling across the state since January of this year, more and more people are coming and telling me what they read on my website and what I've seen on social media. So this purple means a lot to me. It's because a lot of people have been focusing on what's right versus wrong. And we're in a whole lot of wrong in Minnesota. The next thing is we need to step up to the plate with regards to communication. Because it's about relationships. It's about building a relationship and community engagement. And what we've seen across the state as we've been speaking at countless events is people really expressing what's frustrating to them. So the first thing I've learned about leadership is start listening and be a good listener. And then when you get ready to talk, make sure that you're talking about something with substance and something that relates to the people you're working with. Our campaign and our team has developed what I call the County Ambassadors Program, and all 87 counties will have a parish for governor county ambassador by June of 2026. May, probably. May, let's say May. Well, self-impose a goal of May. You hold me to it. All 87 counties will have a parish governor, county ambassador. We can win the state. We're already winning. The landscape is changing, and there is going to be a Republican governor, and I want to be your governor for Minnesota.
Well, thank you, folks. The next question is, in your opinion, what needs to be done to reduce crime in Minnesota? And we will start with Mr. Scott Jensen.
In a sense, it's very straightforward. Stop coddling the criminals and stop vilifying the victims. I mean, under our present governor, we have new statutes that had to be created because we had crimes that had never really hit the radar screen before, like carjacking, and they've become common. We need to rethink what we're doing. Right now, we have gangs that have used 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-olds to carry out their crimes because they know how to use it and take advantage of our juvenile justice system. We're going to have to be, in some way or another, more effective at punishing people that commit violent crimes regardless of age. We have to do that. When we have someone like Mary Moriarty, who's willing to literally decimate someone's life simply because something went wrong while they were functioning as a peace officer, there was no intent, but she was absolutely willing to decimate a life. Thank heavens the courts ruled in his favor. These are the kinds of things that we have to do. But at the end of the day, if we don't stand up strong and recognize the power of the rule of law, and that police are our friends, these are not our enemies, that the highway patrol is out there to help us. Granted, there will be the occasional exceptional situation, but you've got that going on in medicine as well. We've got in every profession, in every field, people who make mistakes, but we should not color the whole profession with that one mistake. The notion of defunding the police in Minneapolis was foolish beyond belief. And I would disagree with the previous speaker regarding Minneapolis. It's not on its way back. It's going to go down further. It probably is going to travel a road that looks like Detroit. So let's not sugarcoat it. Minneapolis won't change until their city council grows a brain. Thank you.
Well, this was quite simple. It really is how we reduce crime, and it really starts at the top. It's called leadership. You know, it's amazing what happened in 1 week after President Trump took over D.C., and the people of D.C. are loving it. They got their lives back. No different. This is strong leadership more than anything else. Listen, as governor, Tim Walz would have fixed this problem from the very beginning. The residents of Minneapolis and St. Paul are not just residents of Minneapolis and St. Paul, they're residents of Minnesota. He has a responsibility for their safety, just like he does everyone else. And I'm going to tell you, we'll fix this problem in less than 2 years. In less than 2 years, we'll get our Minneapolis back, just like we did in October 2009, when it was rated the #1 safest city in the country with the best quality of life by Forbes magazine. It's called leadership. And well, how are you going to do that? Well, good men and women are not going to put their lives on the line for the city council of Minneapolis or St. Paul, definitely not those mayors. But they'll do it at the state level. They do it for people they respect in leadership. We're going to hire 400 to 500 state law enforcement officers. We're going to redeploy them in the Twin Cities, whether the city council wants them there or not. It's a responsibility of that elected official, and even at the government level, to do it. Now, I had a reporter ask me, well, are you going to let the National Guard come into Minneapolis like Trump did? Would you let Trump do that? I said, he won't need to. We take care of our own problems in our own state. We have leaders right now that are not doing it. They're not doing it. We're going to get it back. And I'm going to all invite you back on month 24 to come downtown for a grand old buck party right there in the middle of downtown Minneapolis at midnight. It's going to be the safest place to ever. In all seriousness, what we're also going to do is make sure that there's curfews for those that are 17 and under. Right now, if you look at any of the police reports over the weekend, they're arresting kids that are 11 and 12 at 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock in the morning. We will have curfews. We'll get our cities back, and we'll get back to normal like we can. And that's the short order. And real quick, this is a long-term issue. Charlie Kirk talked a lot about it. We're going to address this fatherless home problem. That's the consistency of these problems with these kids as well.
So two very important pieces I wrote. Please, again, go to the website, look at the 100-day plan. Please also look up the judicial reform that I wrote about. And we're going to make sure that we get judges that are actually elected by you and not appointed by governors. Day one, all DEI requirements across the board are gone. And we're going to start enforcing the law. And we're going to make sure that people who enforce the law are promoted for their merit, not DEI policies, and their merit will lead them to better leadership throughout the communities. Because this has to be community-based. As much as I want to walk into the governor's office and say, enough is enough, stop it, it ain't even going to happen by myself. We have to have a community effort that requires leadership to step up. All these DEI policies have to go by the wayside, and through merit, and the merit of those people who are out there working really hard, they will help us regain that enforcement of the law. So the judicial reform is on my shoulders, and it'll happen, and we'll call legislators in to assure that we codify that in legislation, to assure you're electing judges, and then leadership from the ground up, from your communities, and all that DEI policy stuff is gone.
Well, first thing I want to do is make sure that we protect our schools with retired veterans or retired police officers that can protect our children. Secondly, we have to be aggressive on the streets of our cities. Aggressively hire police officers and get them trained correctly. And while this is going on, and why we put out that incentive to come here to Minnesota and be a police officer, we will do whatever means necessary to secure our towns, and that will include using the National Guard if necessary. We need to protect our people, our businesses that provide the revenue streams for our state, and we need to make those streets safe for our people to walk the streets. I remember going down to Minneapolis years ago, and it was safe. And what's happened under this leadership is horrible. Law is thrown out the window, and you can see it from the top on down. We will prosecute children if they are off committing crimes. The problem we have with the criminals is they think they're not going to get caught. They think they're not going to get caught, and that's the problem. We need to change that by being very strict with our laws. We need to set the standards and set the examples. Thank you.
Well, thank you, folks. The next question is, taxes in Minnesota are some of the highest in the nation. What would you do in your first budget cycle to reduce taxes? And the first candidate to answer that will be Kendall.
Yeah. So one of the first things we have to understand is that financial policy provides a direction of where you want your state to go and how competitive it wants for your economy. And number one, we already have this on our website. We're going to reduce taxes not on the personal side, collapse it from 4 tiers to 2. We're going to move the 9.8 at the top and 5.6 at the bottom. It's going to be 3% and 6%. That's on the personal side. On the business side, we're going to reduce that to 6% for businesses. So at the end of the day, what we want is for not only businesses to stay in Minnesota, but hire here in Minnesota, invest in Minnesota. And we see the outcome of this now under Tim Walz. We have people leaving and businesses leaving, not for Tennessee, Texas, and Florida, not just those states, but for Iowa, South Dakota, Wisconsin, just to get relief from what this administration has done. They're pushing people literally 5 miles away out of their ancestral homes, the states they grew up in, just because they have a system that they're driving an agenda that they don't care about anyone that leaves. So our tax policies will be focused on growth, economic growth, and opportunity for businesses to come here, stay here, invest here, and grow here.
So we have to tackle the fraud. In Duluth, Minnesota, we were at the Duluth Republican Women's, several of us were there, and one of the questions was about, well, how are we gonna cover the gap? I did some research earlier and then published an article that I was already working on, and if you take away all the Medicaid fraud and the housing fraud and all of these levels of fraud that have been instituted and essentially has become a white-collar criminal scheme, our state government has become a criminal enterprise. It has. You're talking about millions and millions of dollars of fraud. And just the Medicaid piece, I proved within hours of doing basic research that if you took away all the fraud, you get more than pay for the elder care and fill the gap and do the extra things that need to be done that are being missed. You can do it. So what we were going to do, with my expertise and my background, I am well suited to get after the fraud. Stop it and start putting the money where it belongs. You are not a bad person when you stand up and say, this does not work. You can't give money to illegals, people that aren't deserving of, people that are getting it through fraudulent means. You are not a bad person when you say, enough, stop. You are a good person, and you're more loving than the person that just turns a blind eye. And you can say on a scale of knowingly fraud, or just negligence and incompetence, which Waltz is probably both, but he knows that it's fraud. I know personally from my background and experience that all the way back to Mark Dayton, I know for a fact that my colleagues briefed them on how bad the fraud was. And they can't look you in the eye and say they didn't know.
That feels right. We gotta stop the fraud first and foremost. We gotta get the right people in there. Our own Doge or bring in Doge, one of the two of those. First and foremost, I want to do is reduce the state tax by 20%, the property tax by 25%, and business tax, 0 business taxes. We can justify that from basically what he just talked about, number one. Secondly is I want to go after the mining up north. We have $3.5 to $4 trillion of gold, silver, lithium, nickel, and other minerals in the ground. That's our money. We're going to take 150 to 200 businesses to support and sustain that mine. Okay, that right there is going to bring 60 to 70,000 workers making $80 to $100,000 a year. That right there is our budget. That income tax is $70 billion a year from the mine alone. That's just one of the revenue streams I want to do. Now, lowering taxes is the beginning of this, but what I also want to do is we've got over $300 billion in tariffs that's come in now. So technically, we can go to the government and ask for a tax holiday. If you're not familiar with that, we haven't paid down on our deficit, on our debt, our country debt, since 1955, not $1. Yet they keep on charging us for this federal tax. Because this tariff's coming in right now, we actually qualify for up to 24 months of a tax holiday of no more federal taxes in your check. I think that'll help stimulate our economy. Thank you.
You are not underfunding our government. You are overpaying, without question. When I ran for the Senate in 2016, our biennial budget was approximately $40 billion. In 2023, they hit almost $72 billion. That is a 75% increase in less than a decade. We have a spending problem. How do you know if you have a spending problem? Well, whatever business you're in, whether you're in farming or in medicine or whatever you're in, you always want to look at what are comparables doing? What are other states doing? Well, if you look at the other Midwestern states, nobody spends more than Minnesota per capita. If you look at who's coming to Minnesota, those that are at the lowest two income brackets are the only source of growth we have. People know that Minnesota's a wonderful place to tap into dollars that you didn't earn. All the other income brackets are leaving. We need to freeze spending, and we need to have across the line, each line item examined, and we simply have to say to each department, you're going to have a 5% cut. I heard someone say the other day that there was a huge cut from last year to this year. Well, of course there is. I mean, if you go from 40 billion to 72 billion and you melted an $18 billion surplus away and you don't know where it went, and now you're facing a deficit, you better lower it some. So I'm not impressed that we cut expenses from 72 billion to 67 billion. We are still out of bounds when you compare us with other states. We have a spending problem. That has to be fixed. We have to freeze spending, every line item is examined, and we have to look at 5% cut across the board. That's how we start making progress. Then we can start to say, Minnesota, you've been overpaying for too long. Thank you.
If you were watching this on TV, about now it'd be time to take a commercial break. So usually the reason that happens is because the TV station wants to pay for the program that they're putting on. So I'm going to give you folks an opportunity to participate in a commercial break. This is being sponsored by the Redwood County BPOU, and they're the ones that have paid the bills. But you're going to have an opportunity to participate and help them offset some of those costs. When you leave, there will be people at each entrance door, and they'll have a hat or a bucket that you can put some money in. So if you feel inclined, we certainly would appreciate if you wanted to help make a donation to offset some of the costs. So now you can feel like you've been in a commercial, and now you'll also have the opportunity to see what it feels like to donate for that commercial. So with that said, the next question would be, what strengths do you have that would make you a strong governor? And on this one, we will be starting with Phil Perry. No, get this wrong. Yeah, Phil Carroll. Sorry about that, Phil. Go ahead.
I have been a dedicated servant to my family, to my community, and my hope is to you and all of our state for many, many years. My strength, my endurance, my dedication, my integrity is untarnished. Again, I was one of the original whistleblowers for the daycare fraud. I withstood death threats. One of those was Credible from Rochester, Minnesota. And I have stood the test of time, even with some faces in this audience that we've had contentious relationships with. But at the end of the day, through working through all that time and all those relationships, those same people, the strongest supporters I have right now, are the ones that I didn't have such a good relationship with 10 years ago, 5 years ago. And now that relationship has grown into an understanding of how committed I am to working for you. I am the leader that can bring this whole team together. I am the leader that has proven myself that I'm working for you, that's servant leadership. And I am the leader that is going to work on, this is about right versus wrong. And if it's wrong, I'm going to stand there boldly telling the world that it's wrong, it's inappropriate, and I'm not going to be shy about it, I'm not going to apologize for it, and I'm not going to make excuses for anyone in my administration that does it wrong. We're going to hold each other accountable, we're going to hold all those that have gone before us accountable, and we will make sure that we have a powerful, efficient, and effective government that works for every Minnesotan.
What strengths do you have that make you a strong governor?
They say that true character is doing the right thing when no one's looking. That's my Christian morality kicking in there, but really to be a champion, not just in life, but in sports or whatever, you have to be true to yourself. You can't say you went and trained and didn't train and still be a champion. It doesn't work that way. You have to do the work. I've always been really good at networking, and I love people. I do talk to a lot of people, as we probably all do, but I'm a good listener. I'm great with team building. My restaurants that I ran were always the best and #1 in the country because I was good at team building and kept a high retention because I would listen to them and see how to motivate them, what made them tick, how to get them more out of them. So that's one thing I'm good at, is getting more out of people. I believe in accountability, and I think that, you know, if you don't hold yourself accountable, you can't hold anyone else accountable. So that's where that character comes in, where you've got to do what you say you're going to do. Being hired for this job, I'm going to do it like any other job. You go in and you've got to get it done. I plan on being the best governor Minnesota's ever seen. We're going to take that mine, just like Alaska did, and get every Minnesota people dividends from that mine. Thank you.
It's always a little difficult to talk about oneself, but that's sort of what we're being asked to do. So if there was one mantra for me, I would say that action gets things done. When I decided to leave a large medical clinic 25 years ago because I felt the patient was becoming sort of secondary to the corporation, I acted. I built a clinic. I built another clinic. When the community needed a restaurant, I joined with a few other people. We built a restaurant. When the community needed to hold on to the pharmacy, I built a space for the pharmacy. I act, get things done. I was in the Senate for 4 years. We needed to have an insulin bill done for 2 reasons. One, because it was the right thing to do. And the second was, if we didn't get it done, the Republicans would take a beating in the 2020 election. Paul Gazelka came to me and said, "This bill's going nowhere. Can you take it on and get it done?" I said, "I will." Tim Walz called me and said, "This bill is going nowhere. Will you come over and meet with me?" So I did. And he looked at me and said, "How do we get this done?" I said, "The Democrats in the House have to knuckle. The Senate, the Republicans in the Senate have to knuckle. There's an answer right there. We can have it done in less than a month." And we got it done. So no longer were diabetics dying because they couldn't get their insulin. I act with energy and to get things done. And I make mistakes too, and I admit them. But at the end of the day, what I bring to the table as a candidate for governor before you is I will be relentless. I've had 1 term in the Senate, and I was disillusioned with how things get done. Government has to function like a business. Spending has to match up with revenue. There are no shortcuts. And at the end of the day, we all have to understand, how did we get in this morass that we're in, and how do we get out? And we have to take action. Thank you.
You know, Sheila and I, we've had a very blessed life, humbled and honored to be even on this stage. But that comes from having done things that were difficult, that no one believed that could be done, and actually get it done. So throughout my career, I turned around businesses, as I mentioned, launched new companies, launched new brands, and been able to galvanize people to believe in a vision that doesn't exist yet, but willing to put effort into something that doesn't exist yet, but because they believe in the vision of what we're trying to accomplish. There's no better feeling for that. Because when most people work, they're spending most of their time at work, away from the people they love and the friends that they know. They spend most of their time away from those people. They were encouraged to actually do more than they pay for, more than a paycheck, because of the vision that we've been able to develop and cast and work toward. And I'll give you a quick example. I started a nonprofit organization 5 years ago because I got sick of how the Democrats have been using the black community as a political weapon for over 50 years. We've gone from 80% two-parent families to 80% fatherless homes without one initiative to reverse the trend. That's the driver causing the disparities, is the broken families. So I started an organization. I went into the black community of the Twin Cities. We didn't used to live like this. You know what? God did not intend for women to raise children alone or to live their lives alone. Our prisons are full of angry young men wishing they had fathers growing up. After 5 years of that, we have over 60 volunteers from the black community helping to restore the black community to what its roots were before we had help from the government. And those roots were basically focused on faith, family, and education, getting a better education for their kids. Today, we have 5 chapters outside the state of Minnesota, and I'm asked to speak all around the country. How do we restore marriage again in the black community as the norm, based on a vision that they all want to be a part of? Thank you.
Well, thank you. The next question will be, how would you stop the fraud and abuse that is going on in the Minnesota state government? And the first presenter will be Brad.
Well, first thing we gotta do is bring in, like a Doge, and people to dig through the books, claw, scratch, find out where all that money went. As far as the fraud goes, you know, they're just not watching what they're doing. Obviously, they can't forecast. I think they forecast over 5,000 illegals to be on health care, and not one person in the House or Senate said anything when it came to $7,000, $8,000, and all of a sudden we're at $17,000 and $1 billion more in the hole. So first of all, it's about getting the accounting down, making sure that the people that are in there can count, okay? And then we hold them accountable and be transparent about it. I think quarterly auditing is very important too. That helps in business, and I think we should do it in government. And of course with personnel as well. We have people in there that are those FTE positions that shouldn't be there. They're not qualified, they're wasting taxpayer money, they need to be fired, okay? And of course the DEI that Phil had mentioned earlier too. We need qualified people that can do this job. So again, when I take this job, it's about raising the standards, bringing people in there that can actually do the job. This ain't the buddy system for me. This is all business. Thank you.
I think it begins with culture. Right now, there's an attitude at the state government that don't worry too much about it. There's more where that came from. That's the problem. We're not seeing the fraud detected by the legislature. We're not seeing it detected by the governor. We're seeing it detected by the Office of the Legislative Auditor. We're seeing it detected by the FBI. We're seeing it detected by the U.S. Attorney. We have fraud, whether you're talking about taking care of autistic kids, trying to house the homeless and the disabled, trying to feed kids for the future. It really doesn't matter what program it is, fraud has infected it. The culture has to change. And getting to what Kendall said earlier, that starts with leadership. And I think Tim Walz has failed at that. And I think we know that. And I think he knows that. And I think when he ran for vice president, he was exposed on the national stage. As all of a sudden, it became apparent that sometimes he said things that weren't quite true. And so he sort of tried to pull the wool over our eyes. But I think we get it now. So the culture has to change. It's not a nice thing to say, but sometimes heads have to roll. Sometimes you have to let people go and say, you didn't do the job. But it starts at the top and the culture is wrong. So unless we're willing to change the culture, nothing else will change. That means that you need to stand up and you need to ask every legislator, why didn't you do more? Because quite frankly, one of the most important things we could do is to have an inspector general that operates independent of the governor and independent of the legislature. An inspector general does many of the things on a state level that DOJ did on a federal level. We need to have that kind of scrutinizing magnifying glass audit. And that could be done with an inspector general. And it should have happened. Both parties talked about how this would be a good thing. And yet somehow they closed up in May or in June and didn't get that done. Shame on them.
The issue that we have with fraud, crime, high taxes, people leaving the state, businesses leaving the state, all of those are symptoms of one thing: poor leadership. It's a leadership problem. by far by none. So yes, we're gonna fix the fraud problem. Yes, we'll get Doge and all of those things brought in, but at the end of the day, we have a state government system that has basically documented fraud of $1 billion. 700 people, I think, 70 people have been arrested for the Feeding Our Future thing. Not one person has been fired out of his administration. That would never happen in the business community. That's why we need someone from outside government to come in and radically change the way it's done, the expectations. I'm just going to take a page book out of the Reagan administration. When he brought his cabinet on, they had him sign offer letters when they accepted the job. And then they signed another document, a resignation letter, undated, because these people serve at the privilege of the citizens of Minnesota as the privilege of the governor. Those will be setting the expectation. You're going to sign both. Because if any shenanigan goes on, okay, you're going to be out the door. That's just normal expectations for any of us in the private sector. That's normal, but not in this government. Walls that let all of this fraud happen, not one person held accountable. And my friend Scott here was very generous to Governor Walz. Says what he thinks he knows, that he's kind of messed up on this. I don't think he knows. He wants to run again. I think we just need to make sure it's loud and clear that there's such a majority vote against him in 2026 for him to understand, well, maybe I did something wrong.
Personal story to help tie this together. So I was already overseas on active duty and serving in a joint task force. I was called up at the time, Lieutenant, hey, you're on your way to, I thought I was on my way to Syria. But I get to Fort Bragg, working with Special Forces, and the joke is, I don't know if I passed the psych eval or failed the psych eval. The next thing I know, I'm in DC in a suit and tie, pretending not to be in the military. So in that work, it didn't take a brain surgeon to get in, put in the team, effectively and efficiently work with a team, who, what, when, where, why. That was our job. And I got very good at my job. I got very good at our job. And we started telling leadership, we got a problem here. You want to know where the money's coming from, you want to know where it's going to, you want to know what it's buying. Well, guess what pattern of behavior we saw? In the top of the list, Minnesota. LLC after LLC, NGO after NGO, all front companies. So here's the personal story. We get into a briefing. Here's what's happening. It's coming right out of the daycare fraud. It's coming right out of all that daycare money. And you see this plot of land here on satellite imagery? There is no daycare in that field. It's a cornfield. Well, that can't be, Commander. What are you talking about? I was promoted to Lieutenant Commander while I was on duty with them. So the point is, it isn't going to take a brain surgeon to walk in and say enough is enough. You can do basic math. You can do basic research. All of this stuff is publicly available data. We should all be a little bit embarrassed about what we've let people get away with. And it will stop with me.
Next question will be, how would you handle a $6 billion deficit in the next budget cycle? And Scott, you'll be first.
I think we touched on the budget situation already, but let me just recap what happened. 2016 or so, we had $40 billion budget, then I went to $72 billion in 23. We had an $18 billion surplus in 2020, 21, 22, that area, we built it up, so that in 2022 we had an $18 billion surplus. That melted like a snowbank, and we don't know where it went, and we don't have anything to show for it. We also, that same session, increased taxes by $10 billion more. Gas taxes, a variety of taxes. And now we're facing a deficit. This sounds like a bad grade B movie, but it's exactly what we have. So, as I said before, we have a spending problem. If you look at the amount of money government spends in Minnesota on each Minnesotan, and compared to other Midwestern states, we're out of whack. So it has to start there. We have to stop the spending. I think the best way to do is to share the pain. Every department's gonna have to find things. But I wanna just give you a couple of examples. We talk about the light rail as an example of wasted money. A big motivation for why the legislature and the governor moved into light rail was because it was supposed to be a $2 billion project, and we only had to put in $1 billion. And the feds were gonna put in the other $1 billion. And everybody likes free stuff. But you know what? It's now gonna be almost $3.5 billion. It probably won't work. But even more important, we didn't use our head. Do you know that for light rail, for 1 mile, it costs now almost $250 million per mile? But if you would build a dedicated 2-lane, only used for rapid bus transportation, 1 mile dedicated bus route, less than $5 million per mile, light rail, $250 million per mile. And with the light rail, you have no versatility. You cannot change, and you have the upkeep and the maintenance. Rapid bus routes for a transit system makes so much more sense. We went down a rabbit hole that this state should never have gone down, and it was for the wrong reasons. It wasn't because it was a good project, it was because there was free money coming from the feds. We lost our head, we spent money we shouldn't have spent, and if we did that in our own private homes, we might be losing our house. Thank you.
So the question is how we get our budget back, how we deal with the deficit we have coming up. This is quite simple. It's very similar to Scott. We're gonna cut spend. If you think about where we were when Scott mentioned it, when he was in the state senate, we had a budget of $40 million in the biennium. We're at 69. There weren't any starving kids in the streets. Our schools were performing much better in 2023. But it's been sliding for all this time. We weren't a catastrophe. In fact, even under Dayton's budget, our state is doing much better. So yes, we're going to find all the spending cuts we need to do. We have a definite spending problem, but we need to get back to the essence of what our policies are for. They're for the growth and prosperity of our citizens and their businesses, period. And so, for example, I've heard mention the DEI, for example. There's 173 of those positions in the state. They would be cut, absolutely, but not just cut because they're sort of, just bygone type of jobs or do nothing jobs. They undermine the very essence of who we are as a nation. They're not diversity jobs. They're not what Civil Rights 2.0. Those things are Trojan horses, ushering in a socialist agenda into our country, into a Marxist agenda into our nation, through our schools, universities, and through our state government. They are an antithesis of who we are as a nation. That's the number one why I cut them, but also it's a waste of money. Now we're not going to get there 173 jobs, but I'm not subsidizing anti-American sentiment in our state.
So I'm the executive administrator at Divine Mercy Catholic Church and Schools. It seems like a small potatoes compared to the state budget, but we're a $4.3 million organization. We just got done building a $16 million school. I'm a zero budget person. I've been there, this is going into my 9th winter. My first year into budget season, I said I'm a zero budget guy. What do you mean by that? Well, you don't have a budget. Well, that can't be, Mr. Parrish. How can you do that? You don't have a budget. All of this money is at the behest of parishioners. It's the same for our government. It's at the behest of the taxpayers. You can't prove to me that you're having some kind of effective, efficient service to the people. You don't have a program. So I'll start with the Department of Education. I did some research when I ran for governor in 2018. The Department of Education, 2/3 of the Department of Education has never been inside a classroom for decades. You're going to have to say to me, what value added to our children do you have? And the governor is the CEO that's going to come to the legislators and present a budget plan or a budget idea, a set of priorities, and going to work with legislators to assure that gets done. What we're going to do is be transparent. transparent, transparent in everything that we do. And we're gonna demand the hard work be done and not cherry pick data to pump up the good vibes in one reporting period and then, tell everybody what really happened later. It's gonna be the hard truth from the beginning, exactly what needs to be done, so that you, the people, can have some engagement with your legislators and our state government and how we serve you and serve it efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, we're at 6 billion, gonna be 10 pretty soon. We have one revenue stream right now, and that's all of us, and that needs to stop. That mindset needs to stop. I talk about revenue streams all the time. I mentioned the mine earlier. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of kickback to every Minnesota person that's been here from 20 on before that. And I think that's what we need to do, is give dividends to that. We also need to build another airport. I don't know who built this state, but I'll tell you what. We got 2 cities right next to each other and 2 airports right next to each other. Everything else is spread out. We need another airport with cities around it that'll create another 1,000 businesses and 100,000 homes. That's what we need. We need more revenue systems. We need more building. We need more of the trades building. We need education. We need money for all that. We don't have enough people. How do we get people here? We gotta build. We gotta bring businesses. We gotta incentivize people to come here and open a business. We need to give a kickback for every sales tax given to our businesses. These are indirect sales collectors for the state of Minnesota, and they get nothing for it and lose money collecting sales tax. We need to generate more revenue, not from just us. Thank you.
So the next question will be, what changes will you make to the Minnesota election laws? In this one, we will start with Kendall.
Well, this one is quite easy. Number one, only citizens can vote in our country in the state of Minnesota. And then go down the list, you have to show a valid ID to vote in the state of Minnesota. And if you have an ID, it will be determined, we'll know whether or not, because right now it is not distinguished if you're a citizen or not. It will be, it should be. Look, every other country in the world does exactly what I just said. And for whatever reason, the Democrats have a conniption fit when we want the same thing that's universal in every country. This whole idea of it's hard for this is not 1950, okay? We're in the real world today. They use these things to circumvent our policies. So those are the things that I would put in place, just to start with. But one of the other things we'll be looking at as well is the paper ballots, going back to that, to make sure that all of us are confident on how our elections are counted and reported, because we need to bring confidence back into our system.
Other than our military and some exceptions, mail-in ballot has to end. It has to end. We are going to clear our voter rolls. I wrote a memorandum, and I can't claim any credit to what President Trump did a few weeks after the memorandum I wrote to him and Kash Patel and Pam Bundy. But it lays out specifically, as an intelligence officer who witnessed how fraud happens in voting, digitally and with mail-in ballots. I wrote out in my memorandum exactly what I've witnessed in my 21 plus year career. Exactly what I witnessed some of our government participate in foreign countries doing. That kind of behavior must be confronted honestly and transparently. President Trump's on the right track. I strongly encourage Kash Patel and Pam Bundy to further dig into, oh gee whiz, we had a little cyber attack within a few days of Pam Bundy saying, hey, give us the voter rolls. Wasn't that kind of curious? Doesn't that allow a little bit of plausible deniability about, sir, ma'am, we lost the voter rolls? just saying. So, same day voting, paper ballots, get a handle on the voter rolls, clear them, and let's get on with some genuine voting.
I'm not gonna kick a dead horse up here, but yes, no more mail-in voting. Voter ID, you must show up. And yeah, we stopped this fraud. They cheated us out of our offices. You know, they've committed this fraud, they funneled it back around and took our money to pay for their own elections with that money. And I think that's coming. I think the Trump administration is doing a great job with that direction. And I know for sure we're gonna turn this state red next year, and we're gonna have a Republican governor in office. Thank you.
So let's summarize, because I think there's a lot of agreement up here. Number one, only citizens vote. Number two, voter ID, and the voter ID needs to designate whether that this is an eligible voter. If you don't have a driver's license, the state of Minnesota can get the people who don't have driver's license a voter ID, and it would probably cost the state about $10 a piece, and we can take care of that. And the third thing, we do need to stop mail-in ballots. Why is that so important? Well, right now, I think the liberals would have us think that if you think that mail-in ballots are a bad thing, then you're a conspiracist, or you're some sort of a whack job. But why was it okay for Hillary Clinton 2, 3, and 4 years after she lost the election to Donald Trump in 2016? Why was it okay for her to say that he was an illegitimate president? Why was it okay in the 2000 election, after the Supreme Court finally had to make the decision that George W. Bush was president? Why was it okay for Democrats to go years and years and say, no, that was wrong? Who would want to fight for an election process that doesn't work? We got Vladimir Putin making comments to Trump about our election system. This is crazy. France stopped their mail-in ballots in 1975 for one basic reason: the amount of fraud that was going on. The Netherlands stopped their mail-in balloting in 2007. Why do we think, what level of arrogance do we have that says that we can do it? We can have mail-in ballots strewn down the hallways of apartment buildings and nobody would ever just follow and pick them up. Give me a break. We know that this is a tarnished process. Everybody should want the same thing. We should want elections that we're proud of. So to summarize again, only citizens vote. Voter ID, no mail-in ballots. And if you're going to vote absentee, you've got to demonstrate a reason. We had that in place for years and it worked fine. We've got more problems now with machines and counters and Wi-Fi access to the voting totals. Let's get it right so we can all feel good about it, and Hillary doesn't have to call anybody an illegitimate president.
Well, thank you, candidates. This ends the question period, but before we go into closing comments, I would just like to encourage all of the guests here to visit with the candidates in the hallways after the forum. There will be opportunities, they'll be around so that you can meet with them and ask questions and things like that. Also, I'd like to remind you that this was sponsored by the Redwood County BPOU, and you will have an opportunity, if you so see fit, to give a donation as you leave the hall today. So at that point, I'd like to go to the closing comments, and then we'll have a few comments to wrap it up at the end of the closing comments. So with the closing comments, we will be starting with Kendall Waltz, and with Waltz, we'll work this way.
All right. First of all, I want to thank Redwood County Republicans for this event. Thank you. You've been great hosts. And as I close, I just want to say, I pray that all of our young people have the courage of Charlie Kirk as we move forward, that it becomes a movement. Guys, for those of you that don't know me, Sheila and I have been married for nearly 40 years. We met in high school. Both sets of our parents came up through the segregated South. They wanted a better life for their children. Even though how they were mistreated, they never talked bad about the country. They never expected anything lower from us. They expected things higher. And we did that. We worked hard. We both went to school together. We went to college together. We got married. We followed the American formula dream. And man, we have been blessed, absolutely blessed. And along that way, I wasn't a Christian then. I just wanted to distance myself financially. And lo and behold, someone invited me to church. Only reason I went was a family friend. If it was anyone else, I wouldn't have gone. But I'm glad I did. It changed my life. I'm now a man with a purpose. And this is one of the main motivations for us to do what we're doing. This is for us an unapologetically acceptance of our faith and the oath that I gave as a lieutenant to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, I want to tell you, again, I'm going to close with the vision I have for us. When I'm out running, when I'm around the state and in the metro, I just don't talk about the office that I want to seek. I want to talk about a vision for Minnesota where we actually win the governor's seat. They have a 1-seat majority in the Senate that we can flip, and we're tied in the House. We have an opportunity, my friends, to win all 3, our own trifecta, for the first time since 1969. And I want you to join me as we change our state, and 2 years to do that in a very powerful way. Thank you.
Why am I running? The words of Exodus 4:14 go like this. And God's anger smoldered because Moses was turning down the job God wanted him to do. If you go to 4:14 in Esther, the words are, have you considered you're in the position you're in for such a time as this? If you go to the words of John 4:14, it said, Jesus is talking to the woman at the well, and he says, but if you drink the water I give you, you'll never thirst, for the water I give you will become in you a spring of water welling up to eternal life. If you go to the church at Ephesus, when the letter was written to the Ephesians, 4:14 says, we do not need to be like children being blown to and fro by the winds of cunning men and scheming ideas. And then if you close with Hebrews 4:14, hold fast to the beliefs you profess. I think that's why we're all in the mix. So then the question is, why me? I have name recognition that no one else has. My name recognition is over 90%. I have volunteers, more than 1,000 in the first 6 weeks. We've created a team of 100,000 emails. We broke the records for vote totals and raising money in 2022. Honestly, our social media reach is over 800,000 every day. The Star Tribune has dropped down to less than 175,000. I don't need the Minnesota Star Tribune to get information to you. I have stood strong in the arena for agriculture, for mining, for business, for mama bears, for kids. I put it all on the line, including my medical license, when I said we should not be locking kids out of school, we should not be locking businesses down, and we should not be locking nursing home patients, causing them to live horrific deaths. I have put it all on the line, and 2026 is our opportunity. I respect the 3 gentlemen up here with me very, very much, and I would be glad to work with them in any way. And in my closing remark, I would just want to say one thing. Senator Gary Daines has been a champion at the legislature, and what you may not realize is that he often serves as mentor for the new legislators coming in. Gary may not be the most flashy guy. He never won an Olympic medal in the 100-yard dash, but he's very generous with ice cream sandwiches, and he helps young legislators get better. Thank you.
This was given to me 5 years ago. I was never in politics, never wanted to be in politics, and frankly, in business, it's not one of the topics you talk to your customers about. When I got into this, I dove in. I haven't stopped campaigning for 5 years. In between each election, I took 2 weeks off and started again because this was my goal. There's not very often I haven't hit my goal. And along the line, I kept learning, meeting good people, getting mentored by new people. And I love that. I go to church 5 times a week, and I don't think that's enough sometimes. It's the relationships that I build with not just my passions, but my God. To see this vision that I have, that I believe is also given me. This is a very sound vision for the people of Minnesota. We need to create new wealth. We need generational, young and old people working together to create a better future. We had the silent majority, the baby boomers. They have failed us in handing off the torch as Gen X, millennials, and the Gen Zs. We cannot do that again. We've got to stop now, work together. I've been working with all the minorities to unite Minnesota. My vision is very clear, and I'm not a person who quits. I keep going until we reach our goal, and I will do the job that I'm hired to do. That I can promise you. God bless America.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your time tonight. It's very important for all of us. Again, I am Philip Parrish. Please go to the website, parishformn.com. Dig in and learn more about the actual substance to what we can do, especially the 100-day plan, all the statutes and precedents that we're going to use to make sure we get that done. We're going to build a team that is unstoppable. We're going to have all the people in place before we take office. We have a very exciting 13 months ahead of us, and I am very happy to tell you that I see a change in the landscape that I have witnessed since working for Steve Swigum. Does anybody remember Steve Swigum? Senator Beans, you probably remember Steve. I knocked on doors as a junior in high school, and in government class, I'll tell a little personal story, and this is for you in the second row here mostly. I got really excited. Here's this young kid from southern Minnesota, nobody from nowhere, and I'm reading about our constitutional republic, and I'm understanding, I'm thinking, what? I can be president someday? I got so excited in government class that I wrote it in one of my keepsake journals that I still have in my house still to this day. And I calculated out the first time I could run for president. It's written exactly when my birthday was and when the next cycle was. I had it all figured out. That's how excited I got about being a president one day in the United States of America. My dream is to be governor, but more importantly, my dream is to serve you. My dream ultimately is to stand before my Lord and say and be embraced, well done, my good and faithful servant. That is at the core of everything that I do every day of my life. My prayer for you all as young people, that you are inspired and excited. You can stand the tests of time and the winds as they blow, but that you can stand there being brave and be leaders that we need in the coming days and the years ahead.
Well, at this time, I'd like to thank the governor's candidates for being here tonight and sharing their thoughts with us and giving some insights on how they would handle the job as governor of Minnesota. We really do appreciate that. Let's give these candidates a round of applause.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
I'd also like to remind people, if you want to buy memorabilia and things like that, there's a spot back in the corner to where they are selling that stuff. So if you'd like to go back there and look and see what there is, certainly feel free to do so. And I'd like to thank the members of the Redwood County BPOU and all the other volunteers that helped put this event on. Let's give those fine folks a round of applause. And to you, the audience, thank you for being here. We do appreciate it. And feel free to visit with the candidates outside when you get a chance. Thank you. Good evening.